End of US dollar. Is this true? Is this just an ambition? What is happening? Well, looks like these countries, especially Iran and Russia, they're becoming ever more desperate to ditch dollar as fast and as soon as they can. Why? Because Iran and Russia, these are the only two countries that have bared the brunt of sanction from US and Western countries. Now, US, their main target is not Iran or Russia. Their main target, from what we understand, Donald Trump's tweet, is China. And Donald Trump said we are going to be imposing tariff on all goods from China from 61% tariff to 100%. And so China is careful. Now, would we see the end of US dollar hegemony is something that we want to discuss in this video. So I want to play this one first from Al Jazeera just to give you some idea as to what is happening with the currency. But before I move on, just to remind you guys, most of my viewers are not subscribed. If you happen to be one of them, consider subscribing. Let's take a listen first.
It is the world's reserve currency, used for nearly 80% of global trade. The dominance of the US dollar gives the US major economic advantages and significant geopolitical influence across the world.
There's no doubt about that. One thing I just want to point out, he said it is 80%. The dollar is used 80% of the transaction around the world. But there is another report that suggests that US dollar is being used 90% of the time and 100% of the time when it comes to trading oil. Now in 2023, 1/5 of the oil trade, 1/5 was done in local currency, showing that countries are trying their best to move away from dollar. Nevertheless, it is a very, very powerful currency and Donald Trump is at it.
Many nations in the BRICS group of emerging economies accuse Washington of using the greenback as a political tool. They're mainly concerned about US sanctions that restrict their access to commerce and capital. BRICS nations now aim to reduce their dependence on the dollar and have proposed their own common currency. President-elect Donald Trump has warned the group that he will act if it attempts to undermine the dollar. Well, Trump says he requires, quote, a commitment from BRICS countries that they won't create a new currency. And if they do, he's threatened to impose a 100% tariff on imports.
Okay, so 100% tariff on all imported goods from other countries into the United States. The problem with that, Donald Trump doesn't understand how these things work. These are all hyperboles from Donald Trump. If he does impose 100% tariff on all the goods entering into US will have inflation that they have never seen ever before, because this tariff will eventually be paid by not China or Russia. I mean, they don't do business with Russia, or India or Brazil or any country for that matter. These tariffs eventually will be paid by the consumers, the traders, the businesses that import these products will impose those extra tariffs, and they will have the consumers, the customers, to pay for that extra money. So Donald Trump's threat to 100% tariff, if you don't give me a commitment that you will not start a BRICS currency, is really an empty rhetoric, and people know it. And most of the countries, especially China, they're loving at it.
Ports. The BRICS, named after the original members, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, have expanded in recent years. They now include Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, and the United Arab Emirates. Saudi Arabia is also expected to join. The grouping is designed to be a new global voice, opposing what it sees as a unilateral approach to the economy and politics. BRICS have accused the US of weaponizing the dollar. They say that America leverages its currency so that rivals must operate within a framework defined by US interests. To counter the dominance, they've proposed to study the possibility of creating a common currency. And
that is very unlikely to happen in the short term. We are not going to be seeing any BRICS currency anytime soon. In fact, Leslie Mesgrove, who is the CFO of the World Development Bank, she said there is absolutely no idea when we will see a BRICS currency. The reason is simple, and this is the number one reason. All of these BRICS nations, Brazil, India, China, Russia, and South Africa. All of these countries, they have economy that are totally different from each other. Means they don't buy and sell products the same way, starting from their central bank, starting from how they do transactions. For example, South Africa, they have an independent central bank, but other countries, they're all regulated. In other words, there is a huge mismatch when it comes to this BRICS nations economy. And number two, guys, reason why we will not most likely see a BRICS currency anytime soon is because these countries, their currency, they are not freely tradable. Means, unlike euros and US dollars and some other currency in the world, UK pound even, how people do business and trade with those currencies, they're very, very easy. If I, for example, show a US dollar in India or in Bangladesh or in Pakistan, anybody will recognize it and they will buy it, or UK pound or even Canadian dollar for that matter. But if you bring a currency people are not aware of and they do not know how to deal with this, then people will be hesitant to buy that currency. So for BRICS currency to take or to gain momentum in the market, it will take time. Right now, with the currency that this BRICS nation has, for example, Chinese yuan, it is much more stronger than a BRICS currency if it is being launched. But even with yuan, India is finding big problem. Why? Because in 2023, Russia had a lot of rupees in their reserve. Why? Because they were selling those oil and gas to India, bypassing or trying to bypass those sanctions imposed by US. Because they had so much rupees, they did not know what to do. So Russia told India, hey, use Chinese currency yuan. If you want to make a payment to us, use Chinese currency. Don't pay us with your rupees anymore because we have too many of them. Guess what? India said, no, I'm not going to be using yuan. So you can see China and India, they're at a loggerhead when it comes to using currency, Chinese currency, as opposed to other currencies. So let's take a listen at this one.
Have agreed to facilitate more trade in their local currencies. Well, many economists warn that if Trump does impose a 100% tariff, it would actually fuel inflation in the US. Let's take a closer look 100%. At how tariffs work to explain why that might happen. A tariff is a tax imposed on foreign-made goods.
So again, he will explain to you what I just told you, how inflation works and how it will destroy US economy. But take a listen. I mean, I think it is very, very interesting.
Countries use them to protect their domestic industries. For example, a car imported to the United States with a value of $50,000, subject to a 25% tariff, would face a $12,500 charge. Now, Trump previously claimed that these taxes won't cost the consumer and will instead cost another country. But that's almost universally regarded by experts as misleading at best.
Absolutely.
The charge is physically paid by the domestic company that imports the goods.
And Trump is master at gaslighting his people. He gaslighted the Muslims into believing that he will stop the war in Gaza. But look what he's doing right now. He says all hell will break loose or something like that. Hell to the people if they don't release the hostages. But again, we're not going to talk about Gaza. But the point here is that Trump can gaslight, and he did. And now he's still doing. He's trying to fool these BRICS nations by telling them we are going to impose 100% tariffs. In fact, China, they lashed out at US and they have banned export of some minerals, I believe, to US that US was using for the military equipments, I believe. That's what they were doing. But now China is saying we're not going to give you those minerals anymore. There is a ban on this. As a response to what Donald Trump said, that China will pay 100% tariffs, as I said, 61 to 100% tariff. So it is not sitting well with these countries. They are not people that you can bully them with, especially Putin and Xi Jinping. He really needs to be careful with his rhetoric. Now, take a look at this other commentary here coming from a different source.
If the dollar becomes an international policeman of trade, then people will look to try and move away from it. Donald Trump only ever has overreactions. He basically runs policy through social media postings, generally in capitalized letters. The threat of a BRICS currency is very low. It's not a natural grouping of countries. Russia is basically a petrol station with nuclear weapons.
And according to this expert, he's a Chinese expert. He basically said that starting or having a BRICS currency is not possible for the same reason that I have stated to you guys just a few minutes ago.
Most recent post, I wouldn't dare call it a policy, is towards the BRICS countries, which originally are Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. It's increased actually to 9 countries. And that was the latest post talking about tariffs there if they try and move away from the dollar and trade more amongst themselves, either using potentially a BRICS currency or perhaps the renminbi. And so this is yet another threat from Trump, which of course is his preferred means of policy making.
So you touched on this, but that was exactly my next question. Are we talking about a brand new currency here, or something akin to the euro going into effect about 20 years ago, or more of an assumption that one of the BRICS nations' currencies would become the main mode of trade?
Look, that's a very good question. And the trouble is that these are just sort of ambitions, and maybe even that's aspirations, may be the better word, of some within the BRICS grouping. China, particularly China, has long worried not about putting the renminbi in the top slot, but about reducing its dependency on the dollar. They've seen how Russia has been targeted with dollar sanctions and freezing of dollar assets. They're extremely worried about such a scenario as well.
Okay, yeah, of course. And the reason for that is because of Chinese tension with Taiwanese people. China has threatened many times that they have the right to invade Taiwan if they see it fit. But if they do, under these circumstances, they know that US will freak out and they are going to be imposing sanctions on China that can potentially destroy Chinese economy. And this is why we have seen, I believe it was in 2022, Nancy Pelosi visiting Taiwan, making China absolutely angry. And even today, you see all of the time news, US is supporting Taiwan, giving them new aid, sending new weapons. All the while you see Chinese are angrier and angrier, and US doesn't give a damn about it. Why? Excuse my language. Why? It is because they know at the end of the day, Chinese economy right now, they depend on US economy, especially on US dollar, how they do transactions around the world. So until we find a solution to those, and until these BRICS nations, they become symmetric, if I can use the word instead of asymmetric, if they become similar, let's use the word similar in terms of how they do their business, domestic and internationally, and how they run their economy, if they do not come on the same platform, on the same page, like European and US economy, then it is unlikely we will be seeing a BRICS currency. And until that time, we'll have to wait and hope that US will not abuse its power of dollar dominance to sanction this country, that country, according to their whims and desires. I have some comments here. Abyss me, you are hello, hi. Some comments here. Albert, thank you guys for your comments. Timeline, the cat zone. See you in the next video.